In a book called Your Money or Your Life, the authors Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin advocate something they call conscious spending. And what they mean by that is you should always think about your money in terms of how many of your life's hours you had to trade to get those dollars. So if something costs $100 and you happen to make $25 an hour, that purchase costs you 4 hours of your labor. If you happen to make $10 an hour, then that $100 purchase costs you 10 hours of your labor. Because although we may not have a strong emotional attachment to electronic numbers promised to a credit card, or really any emotional attachment to numbers, to electronic numbers, our life hours are something that's real. They're tangible and they're finite, and we can value those. So this approach, in other words, tries to reduce the alienating aspect of our medium of exchange by translating our dollars into something that is precious to us, which is our time. Now, for conscious spending to work, you have to know what your what they call your real hourly wage is. Now, a simple way to know your after-tax hourly wage is to just divide your paycheck by the number of hours you're being paid for. So let's say your take-home pay is $2,800 a month. And let's say you work 35 hours a week. Now that would add up to $140 a month. So if you take your $2,800 per month paycheck and divide that by the 140 hours you're working, that would end in $20 an hour you're being paid. But that's also misleading in 3 ways. Because to figure out what your real hourly wage is, at least according to the Dominguez and Robin, the authors of Your Money or Your Life, first you would have to figure in the value of your benefits. Second, you'd have to subtract all the ways that your job actually cost you money. And third, you'd have to divide that adjusted salary not by how many hours you spend at your job, but by all the hours that your job consumes of your life. Now, I go into the details in my book, but this video is probably not the best vehicle for all the math. So I'm just going to stick with the big picture. All right, let's stay with the situation of earning $2,800 a month, which seems to give you an hourly take-home wage of $20 an hour. But then you add in all your yearly benefits, and you divide that by the hours you're being paid for. And it may turn out the company's really paying you something closer to $26 an hour. But then you have to subtract all the ways that your job costs you money, the extra expenses you have for transportation, extra expenses for clothes, extra expenses for whatever recreational activities you may need to relieve the tension and pressure from your job. And it may turn out that your job actually costs you several $100s a month, or maybe more than that. So it's possible that when you subtract all your expenses from your adjusted monthly salary, you may find out you're not earning $26 an hour, but maybe only $18 an hour. But that's only if you're really working only 35 hours a week. If you have the kind of job where you have to bring work home, or you have to spend a significant amount of time commuting, or maybe you have to spend time after work going to therapy because your job is driving you crazy, it may be that your job is consuming not 35 hours a week, but something closer to 60 hours a week. So when you divide that adjusted monthly salary by the number of hours your job really consumes, it may turn out that you're only earning $10 an hour. Of course, this will differ from person to person. But anyway, the idea is you go through these 3 steps. Adjust your monthly salary up because of benefits. Adjust your monthly salary down because of all the ways that your job costs you money. And then you divide your adjusted monthly salary by how many hours your job really consumes your life. And then you have, again, what Dominguez and Robin call your real hourly wage. All right, so now we're ready to get to conscious spending. Now, conscious spending means, again, that for every purchase we're considering, we translate the cost into how many life hours we're trading for that purchase. And we have to consciously think about whether that trade is really worth it. So let's say our real hourly wage is that $10 an hour. So when it comes to a $60 yearly subscription to a magazine we rarely read, and really just adds to clutter, instead of letting the renewal occur automatically and thinking, well, you know, it has good articles, maybe I'll even read it once in a while. Conscious spending would mean, well, I'm trading that subscription for 6 hours of my labor. Is that really worth the trade? So when we look at all our potential purchases and consciously evaluate whether or not the enjoyment we get from those purchases is worth the time it took us to earn that necessary money, that'll be an opportunity to reconsider expenses that don't contribute to our needs or to our happiness. Some expenses might be a toy that will hold a child's interest for no more than 10 minutes. Buying a book from the bookstore that we know we're only going to read once and that we could have just borrowed from the library. Excesses when it comes to Christmas expenses. purchases made for the sole purpose of trying to impress others, excessive restaurant dining, takeouts, and buying almost any ready-to-eat food. Now, when I say buying almost any ready-to-eat food, that would include buying lunch at work 5 days a week. Because if we spend just $5 a day, that adds up to $25 a week, or $100 a month, or $1,200 a year. And if you're one of the people that buy not only lunch at work, but also breakfast, you may be spending something closer to $10 a day, or depending on where you live, maybe even more than that. And that would add up to, of course, $200 a month, or $2,400 a year. So if your real hourly wage is $10 an hour, and you're spending $2,400 a year in this category, that's 240 hours of your life that you're trading away for the privilege of buying food at work. So depending on the satisfaction that you get or don't get from that food versus the satisfaction you would get or wouldn't get from the much lower expense of bringing food from home, this might be one of the expenses that you could consider eliminating. All right, one more video on the subject of how more isn't always better, and then I'm going to move on to my video series on defining how much is enough.